So I do gotta give credit where credit is due. I was able to stop my drinking real early compared to other people with disorders like mine, with addictions and alcoholics. I fully realized it very early. I only spent maybe 3 years being a full alcoholic, and another, I don't know, a teenager, maybe 2 years from 16 to 18. Then I stopped, while I was in Highfields, and then after I was homeless, I only drank like once a month, once a week, very like a beer here and there, where it wasn't a serious problem. But I still would call that alcohol using, or you're still, I was alcoholic, drinking every day for a good 2 to 3 years, and then I drank once in a while. But that was problematic for me because it only kicks the problem down the line. I go I have to walk someplace in the cold while I have a beer in the shower, go out, and then the next day I feel worse. That's not a great system. But I stopped that years ago. I don't drink even a drop. I don't care what the reason is. I will go to the hospital. I will die, whatever. If I have a seizure on the side of the road from the cold or in the middle of the woods, I just have to suffer. There's no way I'm going to treat myself ever again. No, I'm just going to let myself fall apart. That's what's going to happen. But how did I realize that drinking was such a problem so early? How did I understand what alcoholic is, what not to do while drinking, different behaviors? Like one thing an alcoholic will do is when they want to drink and then go home, they'll tell you, oh, I'm a better driver when drinking, or they'll make an excuse why it's okay to drink and drive. And I want to give you an example of some of the stuff I watched that really helped me understand why, if you have something wrong with you, you shouldn't drive. Because I have a neurological disorder every day of my life. It's not drinking. I mean, I've never driven or while drunk, but I have a permanent disorder. What's worse than that? I have uncontrollable body movements. I have seizures, twitches, all the time. But how did I realize this so early? By watching other people make the same mistake of driving while they shouldn't be. And by hearing all the time that doing that is wrong. You shouldn't drink and drive. If you can't move your body or if you're high under the influence, you shouldn't drive. I heard that all the time. And then I saw people drink and drive and what the consequences were. I hate to say this because my brother is a great guy and he really didn't try to do anything. Like he would never do this with people in the car, or at least I wouldn't think so. But he is responsible for his own actions, but there are more information that isn't being admitted. So my brother got pulled over for drinking and driving, which is no big deal. I shouldn't even be talking about his business here. But it's important to know how these things start and how they happen. The reason why he got pulled over and he got caught for drinking and driving, and why he has drinking and driving right in front of me, or watched him, have a bunch of wine and then bring wine with him. The reason why he has this behavior is because it was instilled in him by my father and by my mother and by the situations he was in. My father comes from a different generation. He's almost 90. He comes from a time where drinking and driving was normal. You were embarrassed if you couldn't get home. You would never take a taxi. That would be embarrassing. Even though nowadays it's the opposite. If you have 3 drinks and you try to get into your car, the people at the other table are going to shake their heads and go, look at that guy. He's on his 3rd drink and now he's getting his keys ready for the car. Now they talk bad about you, or people think you're messed up if you decide to drive. But back in his day, it was the opposite. People would discriminate against you if you got into a taxi. Oh, he can't handle his liquor enough to drive. But nowadays, anybody who's had even more than 1 or 2 drinks that are like, a hard alcohol, 90 proof, big glasses, whatever, those people are the ones that are ridiculed now because they're making a decision to harm other people and put other people's lives at risk. But he's from the generation that was reversed. Taking a taxi home back in his day was an embarrassment. So he thinks that's still true today. It's not. And my father really thinks it's okay to go out to eat, have too many drinks, and then drive home. And I'm sure my brother, who's, by the way, twice my age, saw this, and that's why he thinks it's okay. That's it. These things go down generations. If the father thinks drinking and driving is okay, then the son is going to think drinking and driving is okay. And that's how it keeps on going until somebody decides, oh no, My father had an accident and he got in trouble with the law. It's not a good idea for me to follow in his footsteps in that way. But see, my father never got caught or in trouble for drinking and driving, so of course his sons, didn't think it was that big a deal. Now me, I heard from other people, I had lots of outside influences, so I really questioned if driving at all while not being able, while having a medical condition is even bad. Screw the drinking and driving. That's not even what I was thinking. I already knew that one. Don't drink and then drive. Don't use drugs and then drive. I knew that one, and it wasn't a big deal because at the times where I might have been able to drive, I wasn't drinking anyways. But I had another thing I had to process in my mind. Is it okay for somebody who has a mental or physical or any disorder that is affecting their body, where their legs twitch, or maybe they're mentally retarded, or maybe they had their arm chopped off? Is it okay for them to drive without proper medical treatment? If these things are still continuing, like seizures, and they haven't been treated, is it okay for that person to drive? Nope, it's just like drinking and driving. No, it is not. But see, other people make a choice to put other people in danger. They'll drink, drive, they'll have a condition and drive, they'll not tell the DMV that they're losing their vision and drive. Elderly people who now shouldn't be driving still decide to drive. They avoid trying to do what's right so they can stay on the road. People don't want to give up their cars. They don't want to give up their licenses, even if they're putting other people in danger. And that's the problem. My father did this for years. I gotta say, he controls his alcohol very well. He could be very buzzed, and he'll be quiet. You'll see him just kind of still. He might play with his teeth a little bit, put his shirt over his face, and go to sleep. It's not ever violence. It's not ever any weirdness. He just kind of falls asleep, or he might be forgetful the next day of what happened or something like that. And that's not bad. He's also an excellent driver, even while buzzed. He barely swerves at all. But that doesn't mean he should be doing it. And because other family members watched this during the 70s and 80s and watched my father do this, then they thought it was okay. So now I watched his son, my father's other son, my brother, do the same thing, make the same mistake. And I was able to learn from this. I was able to see the situation and know better right away. But it took me a long time to really finalize that decision. I really wanted to drive. I really wanted to go out there and get a car. But is it okay to put other people in danger? Absolutely not. No matter what happens to me, if I die, if I end up run over on the side of the road, if I end up broke or poor or broken, at least I made the right decision and I know my soul is clean. Nobody was ever put in danger because of something I did. Now, yes, I have made mistakes accidentally and things happen, but people make choices that sometimes have consequences for other people. And one of those is drinking and driving. Another one is the statements you make. If you make statements that haven't been time tested over many years, or that have no love, where you're just trying to harm another person or have a negative overtone, then you're not accomplishing anything good and you could get somebody hurt. If you're going to make statements about other people, they should be positive and have positive overtones that help them accomplish some type of task. That's it. When you spread lies or rumors, or you try to purposely, cover up something that might happen, or when you see responsibilities or costs that you might have to pay for something you did, it's not okay then to make up a lie or a story to prevent that from happening. That has consequences, and I see it all the time. Like I've had a couple of friends that got pulled over. Do you think that they told the officer that they were drinking before that? Of course not. They said, "No, officer, I wasn't drinking." They all say that. They all lie to try to get off the hook. They don't want to go to jail. They don't want to pay the fine. They don't want to lose their license. So they lie and manipulate. Everybody does it. I've seen it from like 5 different people. And that's wrong. Something I'm not willing to do. That's why I get in trouble. Because if somebody asks me a question, I'm going to give them a straight up answer. About myself, especially. And if it's somebody else, I try to make sure only positive outcomes can come out. I never want anybody to have a negative outcome because of something I said. The only one that I'm saying right now is the one that has to do with my father. I gotta admit, there could be a negative outcome for my father for what happened to me. I don't know what that would be. I don't want there to be any. But the truth that I'm speaking about what happened to me is not good. And if I die or something happens to me, the only thing he can do is continue to cover it up to make sure that he doesn't have anything happen to him, or none of my real family gets to know what was going on. You know, I'm assuming that if I get killed from a seizure, nobody is going to care or do anything. My father will probably spread the lies that my mother said about, oh no, he probably just did some drugs. Oh no, he was just suicidal. Oh, he probably just walked into that car. That's probably what they'll say about me instead of going with the truth that I'm explaining here. And that's because the consequences and the guilt would be too much to handle. So instead, he'll just try to continue what he's been doing, believing in a false narrative and getting me hurt. That's all. It's got me hurt for 25 years. I've been begging for help at the doctors for 25 years. I've repeated what happened to me over and over. But you know what? People listen, people care. But the people that matter, the people that can change this, they need a lot more on paper, and that wasn't provided. So I just wanted to say that yes, I've learned a lot of things about alcohol, and it wasn't just from the classes. It was from observing hundreds of people who are alcoholics. My father, my brother is an off and on alcoholic. He handles it just like my father. When it comes to alcohol, he's very similar to my father. And then there's at least 40 to 60 people on the streets that I got to know on a personal basis. I even helped them in many ways, mostly rehab facilities, connecting them with doctors, connecting them with other people, connecting them with their families or friends that could help them, things like that. And then I have also met hundreds and hundreds of addicts in rehab facilities, detoxes. Like I spent 1 month in Matsy. I spent 3 months in a transition alcoholic home for alcoholics and addicts. And then I spent another, 6 to 8 months, maybe even a year, in a place called Harmony, Harmony House, I think it was called, or no. It was in New Bedford. I can't remember the name. The whole building used to be a nunnery, and the building was in the shape of a cross, and it had a church next door. It was very interesting living there. But I've learned quite a bit. Now, a part of the drinking and driving I learned about was that childhood as a teenager, watching my father, mother, and my brother. And that helped me learn that it's a bad idea for me to drive while having my nervous system all messed up. And my nervous system's been messed up for 25 years now, so it's not like I can say I didn't know. No, I know exactly the day it started was with an overdose. I know exactly how many times it happened. I know exactly examples of when it fucked me up. I know exactly how many scars are on my body were from these. So because I know all that, because it's all true, because I've had this happen to me, there's no way I should drive. But for me to be able to drive, I have to get this treated. I have to get the information at a doctor. It has to be written down on my medical file. And then we have to get a diagnosis and treatment based off the information I have. But that's going to be impossible with my family or my mother and father, whoever you want to add into this, with them trying to go with some made-up story and pushing that this is all some fantasy and then I'll get hurt or killed. As well as every state I've been to, what has been like 5 different states, has looked very little into this. They want to just not look into it. It's easier that way. I'm an orphan. I'm not worth that much money to them. So it's easier just to ignore it or make it somebody else's issue. The real people that have to help is the families. I've got this question many times. Why isn't your family helping you? What's going on? And then I say, well, I was an addict. Well, that doesn't make any sense. You've been sober forever now. What does that have to do with anything anyways? You have a physical health issue that's been going on for 25 years, and they don't even want to help get the documentation you need? I mean, they're the ones who brought you to Texas. If you need paperwork in Texas, shouldn't they be helping you get it? Oh yeah, that's a regular family. You don't realize my family's messed up. You don't realize I have elderly father who married my mother's best friend, who I call Aunt Alice, who's like a sister to my mother. Then my mother passed away in 2011 of liver failure after we moved around many, many times. I was also an orphan before that. I grew up in programs. I wasn't living with them, so they didn't really see what was going on with me 5 days a week. As well as I lived when we were in Texas and New Mexico. I spent most of that time, or half, or maybe 1/3 of that time, not even seeing them. I saw them for maybe 1 hour once a month. So you got to keep that all in mind. My family and what they did to me is messed up. It's not your normal childhood. It's not your normal family values. It's not your normal behavior of a parent. And because of that, my behaviors were different than any other kid. There's nobody else like me out there because nobody else has the fucked up childhood I had. It's just, I mean, even orphans that go through the fucked up system don't have the childhood I had. They still have a bad childhood and they still have systematic problems, but they don't get abused or made crippled, or they don't hear the things I heard, or they don't have their, I mean, if I won a medal and showed it to one of my other foster parents or one of the other program managers or something and explained to them, you know, hey, I won this, they would say, oh, good job. Why does it have a ZG on the back? Oh, that used to be my name before I got adopted. Oh, you were adopted? Oh, okay, well, that's a nice medal. It's a heavy one, too. You must have worked hard for this. Then they pass it back, and I smile, and that's a normal transaction. I mean, interaction. You show them something that you've accomplished, and they just say, okay, good job. And that's it. But in my family, anything, any single thing that even made up stories in their head, they would make up and use. My mother thought that, or she said that that was an African American's medal. I must have stolen the medal. Then she stole my medal, took it away from me, and now the medal that I won from swimming lessons is no longer mine, and I'm crying myself asleep. Another interaction, now I got hundreds of these, but these are the ones that I find more hurtful. She drinks a bottle down in the basement, or takes a bottle, I don't know, I wasn't there for it. I'm spending 5 days a week in a program getting tortured by other kids. I come home and I get yelled at for some bottle I know nothing about. And my mother is definitely in the corner being like, you could tell something's up with her. But I'm getting blamed for this. Why? Because my mother didn't want to take responsibility for her actions again. Again is the key word. So she blamed me for weeks until in a meeting, I got so upset that she admitted that she actually did it. I was getting upset every day because I didn't do it. I don't mean upset like violent and angry. I mean crying and saying, I didn't do it, I didn't do it. Why you guys know something? There's no way I did that. It was one of you guys must be doing something. And then she goes, yes, I drank it. And then at the end of that conversation, here's the messed up part about my family. My mother said this statement. I said, I knew you did it. She goes, I am an adult. I don't have to take responsibility for anything. I could have left the blame on you and that would have been okay. Or something. I think I said it better the last time, but she said that she could leave the blame on me. That's perfectly okay to blame your child for something you didn't, that you did and your child didn't do. So it's perfectly okay to blame your child for something that you did. Then it's perfectly okay to not admit to anything you did and not take responsibility for your actions. If somebody blames your child for something you did, it's okay just to leave it like that. If you want to make up a story about your child, that's okay too, because she's the mother. She can do whatever she wants. That was her attitude, as well as when I would talk about side effects with medications with her, you know what she would tell me? Don't blame the meds, and then walk away. So I tell her I feel kind of depressed from this medication. You're giving me a pill. An hour later, I feel really sad, really tired. I feel kind of scared. I feel like just locking myself under the covers in my room and just going to sleep for days, even though really as soon as the medication wore off hours later, it would go away. So I'd take a pill an hour or so after. I would get this feeling of awfulness. Then it would wear off and I would get better. Then they would give me a pill. I'd get this feeling of awfulness. Then I would get better. I was reporting this. And what was I told? Don't blame the medication over and over. Don't blame the medication. These are side effects I'm reporting. It's not like I'm trying to blame the medication because I broke a lamp. No, I'm reporting depression, sadness, suicidal thoughts. I'm reporting that the medication's giving me headaches, hangovers. that I don't like the medication. It's making me feel funny. I'm reporting all these things, and what does my mother do? Don't blame the medication. Or she gives me more medication, or more and more. And she totally slips her mind to report these things to the doctor. Here's another messed up thing in my family. My mother wanted me to be schizophrenic. She constantly was trying to get me to say I was schizophrenic and hearing voices. She even wanted me to go over and explain how I make action figures talk to themselves, like I must be hearing voices. I mean, she was totally trying to brainwash me into thinking I was schizophrenic and then making me repeat that at the doctor's. And that happened with other things. Don't get me wrong, she successfully brainwashed me several times. This was one time where it did not work. She tried to get me to say that I was schizophrenic. She tried to convince me that I was schizophrenic. But see, the problem was, I knew schizophrenic kids. I knew what they were going through, and I knew that that's not what I was going through. And I think my mother knew that too. But that was one more thing that she could get Social Security established with. If she could get me to say I thought I was hearing voices, and just from explaining the action figures to me and trying to brainwash me, then I would get schizophrenic medication I did not need, and then when they reported this to Social Security, it would be one more thing on the list of stuff that she's using for Social Security. Now, there was other times where she did this and she was successful. This is messed up stuff in a family. Not just that, we're traveling all the time and I'm missing out on school. That's not normal. When I got sober, they were drinking in front of me. I spent a whole year sober. I worked hard to get my sobriety from alcohol, and I moved back in with my father, and what is he doing? He's drinking in front of me. Every single night. Drinking right in front of me. Is that normal to be doing with your son? No. And he goes, well, we don't have to stop anything we're doing. We can drink in front of you all we want. Yeah, you do. But you don't see how that could affect other people? Your son just got sober for a year. He's trying to move out to another apartment and you want to drink in front of him? That's just not right. There's a bunch, and that's the type of stuff I said. A normal family wouldn't be treating each other this way. But yet, my family was never normal. So if you want to think about, why is all this stuff going on with Zach's childhood, that's why. As an adult, I'm much better. I was able to fix all these craziness. And luckily, my father's behaviors were great. His advice, the stuff he taught me was great. His only big mistake was allowing all this crazy shit to go on. He allowed it. He just would kind of just walk away from it and pretend like my mother didn't just say what she just said. Or he would pretend like there wasn't a problem with my mother and all the problems were with me. Like, I'll give you another example. I jumped into a pool and I had to get 3 layers of stitches on the back of my heel, and it was all carved up like crooked and the skin was folded in. This was a disgusting cut because it was on a not sharp piece of metal. It was from a dull fence that was around a pool that my foot got caught under. So it wasn't a clean cut. It was a disgusting cut. And I barely felt it. I actually didn't even notice I had it until my nephew pointed it out to me. I got out of the pool and started gushing blood. I really didn't feel it for, I don't know, a day or so. The next couple of days I started to feel it as it was healing, but I don't feel skin injuries that much. But anyways, when I finally went home, right, what did my mother say? He did it on purpose to himself. He must have cut himself open there on the back of my heel like that. That's not a clean cut. It's obvious it's not self-inflicted. She goes, I don't care. I think, yeah, you did it. She was making up a story that I must have sliced up my own heel. That's a crazy, after seeing it, that's crazy. That's crazy thinking. That's a mental health disorder. And she was saying this in front of other people. So my other people came up to her and said, that's crazy talk. No, he couldn't have done that himself. It's really obvious. And then she goes, okay. He didn't do it to himself. So then my father and other people walk away. What does she do? She comes up to my face, right up to her son's face and says, I still think you did it. And sticks her finger right at me. She goes, I still think you did that to yourself. I tell her, no, I didn't. Well, I still think you did. And then she walks away. So after telling everybody that she thinks that I cut this disgusting wound open on the back of my heel myself, and everybody tells her that's impossible, I'm telling her it's impossible. The witnesses that were there says that they saw it happen. She's still trying to come up with a story to spread to everybody that I must have sliced my own foot open. And that's for the Social Security case. If she could convince people I was slicing my own foots open on my own heel, then that makes me look crazy. And then that helps Social Security. That pushes the narrative that she was running. It just didn't work because other people weren't as crazy as her. They told her, that is crazy talk. There's no way that Zach sliced open his own heel. We got witnesses. We got the wound right there. We got all this. There's no way. So she gives in to them and says, okay, okay. And they walk away. As soon as they're out of earshot, she looks straight at me and goes, I still think that you cut open your heel. I don't care what anybody says, you did it. And then walks away. That is messed up stuff. This is not a normal household. This is not normal stuff to be doing to a child. I'm an injured person who got in an accident while jumping into a pool, and now you're emotionally scarring me after an injury. Not just that, you're talking shit about my brother who came to the rescue. He wasn't there. I came over. He was trying to duct tape it and help and get the bleeding to stop. He was trying to, he even drove me home to get back home so that you guys could see it and then bring me to the emergency room because he didn't know what you guys wanted me to do. He wanted you guys to make the decision. With a crazy mother like mine, that was best too. Because without my mother seeing it and without my father seeing it, she could have pushed that I did it. Or made up a story. So it's a good thing that he did do that, and it was a smart decision. But this shows the mental mindset of my family. And what did my father do after that, after my mother made that crazy statement?